wondering what this thing was. And I'm an artist, and I wanted to see who else was out there. You know, the initial thought was maybe there are other artists in this community and we need to sort of get together. It's been a little bit different than I expected. Michelle joined me early on in co-hosting the meetings. There was another lead, Hugo Araujo, who's in Belgium, and but we've been meeting weekly all last year, and it's really just been a space to hold creativity and big questions around this sort of transformative time we're in. Sometimes we've done creative exercises together, you know, that I've hosted, or Michelle or somebody else. Sometimes it's really a sharing of somebody's body of work, and then open discussion. It's sort of it's really just an open space for different people to take the lead and make an offering that, and I think people have found it, you know, valuable in some way. I think the rest of GRC is not the rest necessarily, but a lot of it is focused on entrepreneurship and that kind of storytelling. And we're just a space for kind of the bigger story and how to engage with that. How do we tell that story? How do we live that story? You know, these are not easy times doing it in community. So I would say that's the impetus. Michelle in particular has a project called What's Next for Earth, which is a Instagram art call, and every month or two she shares a specific video around which the art call is organized, and there's sort of, sometimes we're sort of programmatic in that way, and sometimes it's very free flowing. So but this is a new iteration for 2022 because Michelle and I are stepping back from the main organizing, and other folks are stepping forward. So so far we have weekly meetings booked out for a while, with Clare as host, and others are really invited to participate in what we do today, which is sort of scheduling moving forward, and just putting your hand up to make a kind of an offering of whatever. Literally, it's one session or multiple, or, you know, to share your work, or to highlight a question you have that you want other people to offer input on. So it could be any of those things. And I'll turn it back to, I mean, sometimes we start with a go round to sort of say our name and where we are and what our interest is. That might be a place to start today, since some of us are new. I'm Christina Conklin. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm an artist and a writer. Really concerned about, you know, the times we live in, and trying to figure out how to make art relevant. Sometimes it seems, I mean, I know it is, I know in my heart, but sometimes it's hard to hold on to that.
Thanks. I'll introduce myself as well. And I actually really like that idea. I hope anyone who doesn't want to do this, of course, you're always free to abstain. But I'm also, I came to this group last year sometime, I forget exactly when. And as I'm an artist too, I'm both a musician, but also a visual artist and a writer, and kind of a lot of different types of art. My driving force is basic terror, I suppose, in a way, both terror and celebration. So I'm terrified of the human lack of living into our potential. The fact that the story that I see is that we look the other way. So we're not only in Plato's cave, we went further in. So we don't even know there's a flame to look at. And then the celebration is I think we're amazingly designed and part of a massive system that's intelligent and creative. So for me, the arts is an essential language environment. multiple languages to help us transition from, deep inside the cave to something that is more functional and regenerative. So that's why I'm here, and didn't want this particular group to die, because we need environments that understand the importance of arts, in my opinion. So that's me. Anyone?
Yeah, I just want to add to what Christina said. I came to this group because I'm of course deeply concerned by the situation we are in. I joined also the MOB, the Millennium Alliance for Humanity and the Biosphere, and I'm taking care of some publication on the website about
Michelle?
the arts on the yeah.
Michelle, can I interrupt you? I'm sorry, like you sound very quite muffled to me. I'm having a difficult time hearing you. Is there any way you could get closer to the microphone or something?
I am next to my...
That's better.
Does anyone
Better.
else?
That's better.
Better?
That is better. It was a
Okay.
little muffled for
That's
me
better?
too.
Okay. Yeah, so I just want to add that I joined this group because I'm deeply concerned about the situation we are in, and also I joined the MOB, the Millennium Alliance for Humanity and the Biosphere at Stanford, and I am publishing some art articles on the website about the arts and the Anthropocene, and I just want to say that what I am interested in is really to deal with the fact that we are in a situation that people may think they know about, but most of them don't. And and that's what the group at Stanford is for. They want to avoid the collapse by any means, and to do that, they have all sorts of scientists working and thinking about what not only what could happen, but of course what can do, right? So at this point, it is very possible that the collapse is inevitable. That doesn't mean that nothing can be done, but I am not very hopeful at this time. And I say that it's not that I lost all hope, but I think that, and I think we can see that very clearly in Don't Look Up. If you saw the movie, we need to be very clear and extremely clear, and because a lot of things didn't work, otherwise we would not be in the situation we are in right now. So we have to invent, create, I don't know, a new language, new stories, new, I don't know what, but to make this big, huge boat turn. And so I'm interested in all sorts of groups that are working towards that goal. So it's not very poetical where I am, but I think it's kind of exciting. Anyway, I hope that was clear, but yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Mary Ann, and so grateful to be here for this opportunity. I'm a retired teacher. I taught for 40 years, and I'm a grandmother. And I was introduced to this through Michelle through the What's Next for Earth, which has just been fantastic, and I've really benefited from being a part of that. And I really look forward to these meetings. I haven't always been able to join in more than maybe once a month for a while, but I've made a new commitment. I've got on my calendar 9 o'clock Wednesday mornings. This is I really look forward to. It's kind of expanded, for me, just more than just the What's Next for Earth, but I've really loved the other conversations and getting to know the rest of you. And it's just been a great connection for me, especially during this pandemic, being more isolated, and that we moved up to Oregon from the Bay Area, and I've somewhat connected with an arts community here, but I just feel like that connection is really important to me, and it's really, I really appreciate hearing your stories. I just love seeing what people are doing and your work in the world. And back when the pandemic started in May 2020, I had an article published in a book called I don't know if you can see it. I'll put it on the chat, called After the Pandemic, Visions of Life Post-COVID-19. And an article I wrote was included in this, just written by a bunch of writers, mostly from the publishing company that I work with. And so my article that I wrote was a Coronavirus Instrument of Change, How the Arts Will Usher in a New Era. So, I mean, I cited a lot of historical, looking back at history, how catastrophes and collapses, how the arts have played a really crucial role in telling the story and in envisioning a way forward and healing. So for me, that I'm really excited about being part of this group, and that from that aspect of sharing how can arts empower us, and like Michelle said, to teach, to help people become aware and expand, the knowledge. I do say that I'm very frustrated on a very local, personal level. Things that my husband and I, we see just locally going on, and people they're so busy in their lives, and they're so, and people are just struggling, just to get by, and just this whole thing about caring about the environment and thinking about the bigger picture. It seems like it's been a bit frustrating, but yet I feel that, there's a yearning too. People need that connection. And I guess for me, the connection is so important, being connected to, our environment, to the earth, and we've lost that. And people, I think there is a deep yearning for that. But anyway, so I guess basically I've said enough, but I'm so grateful to be here, and thank you to all of you. And I'm a little insecure about taking on more of a role at this point. I think that I'd like to start out. I'll be presenting on January, what day is that? Anyway, after Michelle. So, I appreciate letting me take my baby steps here. I'm a little bit of an introvert, it's kind of got to coax myself, but definitely a stretch. So I love it that I'm being stretched, and so thank you.
I'd love to hear from other than the 4 or 5 of us that have coordinated this group. Love to hear Lena, Alessandro, other folks who don't always drop in. I'd love to hear why you're dropping in and what your interests and intentions are, so we can begin to form a plan forward that embraces lots of different perspectives.
Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Lina Hayek. I'm currently based in Helsinki, Finland, but as of Friday, hopefully I should be in Totnes, England in the UK. I'm a student at the Schumacher College. I'm studying regenerative economics, but I actually have an art and design background. So I've studied art in Norwich and design at the University of Salford in the UK. So all my training has been quite UK based. The reason why I'm here is, well, I love the arts. I think it's a wonderful medium that crosses all kinds of cultural boundaries. It's a language of its own, so we don't have to necessarily, I think it can move people in different ways, and it's open to interpretation. And that's something that I quite like about the visual arts, that it crosses those cultural barriers in that sense. I'm also aware that the Dartington Art School as well has quite a history and an archive, which I'm looking forward to exploring in a couple of months. And it's something that I've been discussing at Dartington, which is perhaps doing something around eco-anxiety and grief around the climate crisis. A lot of people in my cohort and in my college have been talking about this. I've been dealing with those kinds of emotions throughout my life in different ways. And I think definitely the creative mediums are helpful, whether it's a kind of drama therapy or art therapy using clay, some kind of interactive thing with the audience where and then now I'm thinking, well, since we're online, maybe there's other ways that maybe we could design something in which it could perhaps be a process to kind of like a therapeutic art process to get people to, as Michelle, you were saying earlier, to understand what's going on, perhaps give them some prompts, but to also do some self-exploration, but then also build more of a dialogue through visual communication. They can share their art. And with these, if you're mentioning that there's Instagram, which is fantastic because it's a great visual medium that people like to use and it's instant, people like to share things. So something along those lines has been floating around in my head. So I thought, yeah, from the conversations, I'm thinking maybe that could be something to experiment with. Yeah, so that's what I have to contribute at the moment in terms of ideas. I'll pass it on to Alessandro.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lina. As Lina, I'm pretty new as well. It's my fourth time. I think we start almost together. And I come from Italy. In this moment, I'm in Italy, but I will be around Europe for the next 5 years. And the reason why I'm here, I'm not really an artist. Actually, I have lack on that point of view. But I think, as Lina says, art, visual, movies can be a really good tools, I would say, to communicate something that sometimes is not really shared or spread in the right way. Why I'm here? Because I think I need myself a community to keep my energy up, because I'm a person with a lot of energy. But when you fight with, when you have many things that take you the energy out, having people that are in the same path and they can put you back in the path when you are sometimes getting out, I think is something that I really need. What I'm doing now to help this process is going visiting project in Europe. Actually, I will be in Totnes in the Schumacher College, because I'm going to see Rob Coppins for the transition town. And what I'm creating now is a way of communicate these tools that I'm learning in my path and spread out as much as possible with the right people, so to facilitate this creation of community. And hello, Karen. And so this is my, let's say, my mission. What I see I can bring to this movement. I come as well from the business part. This way as well I came inside this movement. But my end vision is to create a community. I don't know if I will see this right community that I would love to have in my life, but maybe I will start to put something for who's coming after. So, and here it is. And thank you so much for hosting this place.
I can jump in. I think this is maybe only the third time I've joined, and I'll be honest, it'll be sporadic for me moving forward. My curiosity stems from I do in a human nature connection workshop. And I've done it in two places, one for therapists, as we're talking about nature and counseling, and one in the conservation community, where I feel like people in conservation have disconnected from nature and are unaware of their disconnection. And I use this environmental identity activity that is very I used a tree as an example, and it's very artistic, and I did it with both communities last year. And I'll be honest, I had in the therapeutic community, there were art therapists in the group, and so I assumed that they were going to be very artful, and they were. And then I just made some assumptions about the conservation community that they would be very uncreative, and that was completely wrong. They came back with some amazing stuff, and I can't remember if it was Marianne or Lena that mentioned that art doesn't have a, it's a universal language. And I found that to be true. Like people's interpretation of their own art and of other people's art, like just brought people together in this insane way. But the thing that really, really struck me last year was one of the women in my conservation group said, "Conservation kills creativity." Those were her exact words. And almost to the point where she's considering leaving. And there's something in there that I want to try to expand. This environmental ID activity, I'm going to be using it a little bit more, but also I try to incorporate some poetry. I use a quote at the end of all my workshops. I'm trying to throw some things in there. But I'll be honest, the conservation community is very like, we are objective scientists. And so there's some, kind of resistance. So that's my interest in occasionally dropping in to listen to something that I might be able to kind of pick up to insert. If somebody gets an aha insight that I can throw into that group. There is a longing there. I agree too. There is a longing for this stuff. There's a longing for creativity. There's a longing for spirituality. And yet those are things that in the conservation community are sort of taboo still. I'm working on it. Thank you.
Thank you too. It's really rich to hear everyone. I think it'd be lovely if you're willing to hear from Carol and Carrie. I think you both maybe haven't spoken yet. Putting you on the spot. Apologies.
I'll speak quickly. I'm doing a couple things at the same time while taking care of some visiting parents in the Midwest where it's snowing. I've written some books about source separation and wastewater recycling, and they were for a popular audience, and they were written, at least one of them, with the practice built in, trying to make it mimetic. And more, I'm looking for ways to, without getting into the gimmick, like making a toilet out of poop, as someone at an art school did, and then everyone got confused and thought that was an ecological toilet. It's like, no, guys. But looking for ways to create processes for people to make things and to really feel something at a limbic level. And I think that's where it's at right now. We don't have enough participation. We have this hyper individualistic notion of, I'm going to tell you something, that's becoming more and more prevalent. But Christina once led a Tideline is Timelines walk. And it was just with all sorts of artistic stops along the way, showing where the historic tide line was like 100 years ago. Sorry, Christina, if I have that wrong. And doing something that was immersive and participatory and sensory on all different levels it's really stayed with me. So I think that's the sort of thing I'm especially interested in. Thanks. Carrie?
Well, me too. So it's wonderful to see all of you and to hear from you. I also do not consider myself an artist, although I suppose if I had any artistic practice, it's the culinary arts. But I know how vital the arts are to my own vitality, to my own spirit. I mean, I am a deep appreciator of music, but I can't sing. But music is an enormous part of my life. Art also, so I do not take for granted the profound spiritual and what was the word that Michelle used? Creative impact that the arts have on my own being. And so I'm grateful that Michelle and Christina created this space for us over the last year. And I've been somewhat sporadic, especially lately, but every time I come here, I feel so enriched. And I wish I could come every time. But one of the things that I've been inspired by from this group is, and Christina knows because I was bugging her to try to help me do it, but maybe others can, maybe all of you can, I don't know. But this notion of creating an experience, an immersive, sensorial, multi-sensorial, experiential offering for leaders who are interested in, stepping into their own regenerative capacity is something I'm really inspired to try to create. And I've been talking about it for quite a while, and I haven't made much progress, but I've made some notes, and so that's something I'm committed to trying to really stand up or usher in this year, because all the things you've all said are true, that we're experiencing a lot of grief, denial. We are massively, massively, massively in denial, especially those people who are theoretically supposed to be responsible for leading us to a new future, i.e. those who for 26 times in a row have met as global leaders and are still not really dealing with reality. So I don't think, I think it's time. I mean, we've all known this, but I think it's really high time now that, we're not looking to other people for answers. We have to look within our own communities and in our own sources of our own oases to live into this regenerative future, and to help usher others along. And I think the last thing I'll just say for today is that ironically, so part of my work is as an executive coach, and one of the things that I've always wrestled with in my professional life is this critical part of me that is so connected to nature and so aware of the climate crisis and the climate emergency. But I've always, I've been very reluctant actually to bring it into my work, because unless I'm working directly on it with other people who already get it. And there's a new movement that's emerged in the last year called the Climate Coaching Alliance, where we're being invited into conversation with other coaches about how to bring this into our work, because coaches professionally are bound to let the client drive the agenda. And so it's not really our place traditionally to bring conversation of climate into those sessions. And so these coaches are basically breaking the rules and saying, we got to figure out a way to do this. So anyway, I'm just inspired by that. And in particular, Eve Turner, who's one of the founders of this CCA, has written about something called Third Horizon Living. I think that's what she calls it. And the thing about Third Horizon, there's like 3 horizons. There's a whole scenario. Maybe some of you know about this, but I'm just learning about it. So basically the idea is like, we can live in, I see some smiles. We can live in, the world as we are, yearning for and imagining this future of regeneration. We can live in some in-between place, or we can start to try to live in that future that we desire. How do we live regeneratively now in the midst of this liminal confusion that we're all dealing with? And so I'm really inspired to think about, like, what does it look like for me to actually embody and live regeneratively now to the greatest extent possible. And so anyway, I just think that that could be something, that could be a thread that some of us might be interested in pulling this year.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thanks.
Sayed, have we met before? It's wonderful to have you here.
Hi, yes, I've been to this event maybe 3 times over the past year, which is not a lot. But I hope to attend more frequently, because the few times I attended, it was a great source of inspiration. I remember one time I think it was Christina who showed a video from a video about vision. And I know I've been showing that video to everybody around me. So, would I call myself an artist? I don't know. I know that I like dwelling in this art world, using its different tools. But I don't have, and I know that there is a place for the conversation around environment in the art world, but I haven't quite found my place. But as I said, the few times I attended this conversation, this group, I found myself very inspired of what was being said. So I hope 2022, I will be more of a frequent visitor of this group.
Thank you. God, it's rich. What rich soil we have here. Just taking that in. I have a couple of things I'd like to share with everyone that pertain to how we can stay in touch. And I also have an idea which I'd like to share, because this is a community, and especially for those who drop in rather than come every week, you know, depending. I have a thought which I just want to put out there. So the two things are the thought around how we might create a visible presence on the grc.earth website. That's one thought, which I'll share. And then the other thought is to show you the Mighty Network community site, where we can share ideas and thoughts as things go along. So is that okay if I do that with everyone? Okay, cool. So the first thought, and I'm just going to share my screen because I can.
Hey, Claire, just one thing. If there's time after this, maybe it would be great to hear. I don't think we heard from Christopher, did we?
Oh, good. I think you're right. Sorry, Christopher. Hang on.
I was being quiet because everybody else talked, and I'm here all the time. So
yeah, but you haven't met.
Yeah, but we want to know you all the more reason.
You got to introduce yourself, mate.
All right. I'll be really quickly because the intention of this meeting is to foster progress. So I am Christopher Losa. I got involved in GRC initially because I have a long history in supply chain and food systems, but in the last 3 to 5 years, I have been moving beyond that work and focusing on my artistic self. And so I am an artist living in Sonoma County, California. And I work across sculpture and paint, experience and events, all looking at how we utilize the notion of individuation, self-inquiry for a collective, better future, a regenerative future. Hence how my work from being involved in GRC from a food systems perspective has morphed beautifully into being part of this group, which in 2021 was just a real touchstone for me, and in advancing my work and building community, and so hence why I signed up to try to continue to foster this community forward in the next at least year. So that's it. Claire, back to you.
Well, now we have a wonderful quandary because Eckhart and Tristan have joined. And so I don't know whether to carry on or whether to invite both of you to just say hello to us, because not everyone's met each other. And that's kind of how we've been starting the day. So Eckhart or Tristan, would you like to introduce yourselves briefly about what it is that brings you into this room, generally speaking, or today?
I can say hello. I've seen many familiar faces. I kind of got into arts and design later in my career. It was always my intuition. And I feel like there's a deep yearning and kind of, if I don't have it, and I kind of shun it. And so I'm intrigued. I just saw this, maybe it's new, probably is relatively new. I don't remember seeing anything about the arts per se. I just I got in here very late, so I just have a design project that's larger than life, and I don't know if it'll ever happen at this point. We need, I'm just knocking on doors and generating more interest in trying to get us the resources we need. We're trying to do something regenerative, but under the aegis of an existing organization that's well known, called the Burning Man Foundation. So it's functional, and it has elements of beauty, and it's a platform. And so anyway, I'll just end at that, and hopefully Tristan can talk.
Thank you, Eckhart. Tristan's actually put in the chat that he's at work, so he's happy to just be in the room with us. Perhaps not a good time for him to be able to talk to us. So I'm just going to go ahead then, get back to screen sharing. This is the GRC website, and it occurs to me that what wonderful real estate we have here to create a landing page that would basically direct us to the Mighty Network site, where people can actually interact ongoingly 24/7. So that's one thought. And then with regards to that, small screen. With regards to that, whether we might want to each of us that feels identified with the arts, and regenerative arts, to maybe do like a 30-second video of ourselves just using our phones to say what we think regenerative arts is and why we think it matters, as a way to make an inviting environment for people to come and join. And that could be something that people just add as and when. That could be here on the landing page, if we agree that we'd like to have a landing page, and if that's possible, or this site. So, geez, tiny little screen I have. All right, so this is Dynamic Emergence, which is my Mighty Network site, and you can have groups in here. So what we've already done is create a GRC Arts group, and when you go inside this, and this every single person is invited to, it will be a public space. In here, of course, we can make topics. So one thing I put for the people that have already joined is I put some questions here for people to think about, so that we can co-create this space. Let me make this smaller. There we go. So I'm just going to close that. And what we could have here are topics. So for instance, some of the subjects I've heard people talk about are stuff to do with Schumacher and Totnes and Dartington, personal projects that might want invitations. So this is one that I started already for Michelle's project. and it can have a description in it and stuff like that, and images. And then just to show you how it works when it's populated, I'll go into a topic. Let's find a topic. Well, actually, let's just go to the home. So people can communicate, post things, talk to each other, and you can upload all sorts of media and links. So it's actually very, it's got an aliveness to it. I actually personally am a big fan of this platform. So within the GRC Arts, that's the focus. And so within that, we have our members, so who's joined so far, and to make sure that we have people that are meant to be here, as opposed to just sort of Zoom bombing type people. There are questions, I believe. If there aren't, we can decide together what questions we'd like to ask people. You know, as simple as what interests you about GRC Arts, for instance, or what project are you working on at the moment, or what are you interested in experiencing within the community. And of course, we can also post here in the events, we can post the upcoming weeks of what's happening, so that people have another place to come and participate. So that's kind of the bare bones of it so far. And people can be made, I think, moderators or administrators on the Mighty Network site, so that between us, we can kind of co-manage. But I think anyone can set up a topic, for instance. You don't have to have any status, I believe, apart from participant. So any thoughts, questions, reflections? Hello, Andrew.
Just by way of explanation, I think really all of GRC operates on Slack, but the folks who want to, you know, sort of carry this forward don't like Slack. Slack is not a lovely platform, especially if you're an artist. It's very unaesthetically pleasing. So I think that's why we've come up with this alternative. It might make it a little bit, you know, we'd have to figure out how that works. And in terms of, you know, promoting events and internal communications versus external communications. But, you know, I think that's why this, at our last meeting, we talked about creating this as a more lively, engaging space for us to plan, organize, and move forward.
Thanks, Christina.
A question, Claire, on the calendar, because again, I guess somewhat the topic of this particular session was to plan for the administration of how we're going to plan out the calendar. Is the calendar literally open to anybody who gets onto the GRC Arts subsite on dynamic emergence, and or is there some moderation? I'm just wondering how we're going to control getting topics posted and coordinated on a calendar.
That's a great question. Well, I think that I need to check on the back end of how Mighty Networks works for that, because this is the first time I'm sharing the platform in this way, as in a collaboration. So I can have a look at the parameters for that and get back to everyone. I would be willing to put, as a starting point, at least, I'd be willing to be the person that basically copies and pastes what Dave posts from GRC into those events, because if they carry on being weekly at the same time, that's kind of an easy thing to do, because you just create it as a repeat event. But then each time it would mean going in and changing the content, right, the description. So there'd be that. And I think anyone, I know that we can make it so that whoever wants to input stuff on the calendar, they would be able to. And I think it's an invitation for chaos if absolutely anyone can do it. And the question might be, do we just stick to having the GRC arts events, or can people host their own events, related, which I think would be really nice, but separate within the same room, virtual room, so to speak. Does that answer your question?
A little bit. I mean, I guess it sounds like you've got some exploring to do on Mighty Networks to understand that calendar function. Is that?
Yeah, and actually, if you think about the space I just showed you, one of the topics could be administration. And so in there, as long as anyone who's here comes onto that platform, which is very easy to do, if you put I can put the link there and you can just ask to join. I think that might be the simplest way, or you can put your emails here in the chat and I can invite you to join that particular group. And I presume by joining that group, you join the whole platform. That would make sense. But in there, then whatever I find, I can put that in there, and people who are proactive will be able to respond and make a request to be an administrator or whatever. Does that make sense? I mean, we need a place to discuss. If we don't want to discuss on Slack, we need a virtual place to discuss. So that's what the Mighty Networks offers.
For sure. And the nice thing, at least on their iOS apps, it's you can directly post from Mighty Networks to a Slack channel. I don't think you can do it on the browser version, but on the apps version, you can post directly to Slack. So
it's cool.
It'll be easy to communicate what needs to be communicated to Dave to get it on the GRC Slack site.
Nice. Lena?
So I guess I'm trying to respond to some questions that I'm seeing in the chat about how do we go forward with planning out this calendar. Marianne has she's signed up for a couple weeks from now, and I think Christina, you're doing next week, right? Is that
Michelle's doing next week? And I think
we're going to do it together, because we are going to hopefully starting very soon. We are going to work together on what's next for Earth. So yeah, we may host it together. That would be great, actually. So yeah, absolutely, next week.
Yeah. So Claire, go ahead, Christina. Sorry.
I was just wondering if the next step is, everybody here has something really interesting going on, and I would love to hear more about Michelle Doerr's workshop activity, and what Carrie's thinking about, and Eckhart. So, is a step to get a calendar function going where people can literally just take a meeting, own that one space, see how that feels for you, if you're willing. And then, and some people, want to step into a more regular hosting position, and others may not. But in terms of actually scheduling out, I think we need a space where people can just put up their hand fairly soon to move things along.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's how I guess where I'm trying to understand how the calendar on Mighty Networks gets functional for somebody who wants to, if Michelle wants to sign up to teach us about nature therapy, how does she get that on the calendar?
Well, for
Lena,
me,
you had a question?
sorry, I just want to respond to that. Logistically, we can't have too many people being communicated with in different ways. So the first step that I see to keep me sane is to have everybody either put their emails into the chat right now, or I just give you the group, the network feed, and then you can go there yourself. So that's one option. And I'm doing this part for the first time. I do see you, Lena. So hold on one sec. Doing this for the first time in terms of whether or not I just invite you to a group, whether I can just invite you to a group. So this is our group. The second link is our group. So maybe you could click on that and see if you get there. If you have any difficulties, this is my actual email. Anyone I think will be able to post events, but I'll check the settings when we hang up this call. And I'm not sure if it shows up, because I've never had to do it as an actual calendar, or if it just shows up as a drop down of events. And they show up in chronological order. So that's something I can discover and put there. Oh, good. Carol, when you say it works, which link did you use? Please. Maybe she can't answer.
No, I had to move 3 pages away. The second one.
Okay. So any of you can go to the second one right now and join, and that way we can carry on talking and clarify things. Lena?
Yeah, so I have used Mighty Networks across different communities that I'm a part of. And in regards to a calendar, what seems to have been protocol is the community itself publishes their own events. And then if people want to share external events, then they create a separate post, because that's a way to kind of distinguish all of that. And then another question, so that's one part about the calendar. Another question I have is, so Mighty Networks is going to be used for us to talk and exchange ideas, but then I'm wondering about, let's say, facilitating workshops or doing things where it might be a bit more private, but then wanting to have a bit more of a support group. Does that get put under the Mighty Networks? Will there like a subgroup be created? I'm just thinking, like, because I understand that with Mighty Networks it's a paid platform, and usually the way that the communities cover the costs is by having like a membership fee, and that covers the cost for the platform and other administrative things. So I was just curious about the administrative capacity, if there are some ideas in terms of how, as was mentioned earlier, internal, external, does the external eventually become internal because they're part of the community, and all those kinds of elements that get moved around?
These are great questions. They're very practical, fundamental questions. I don't know. I don't have an answer yet, personally, but I appreciate that you have a knowledge from using it in different scenarios. I suppose what I'll do is just look at it, because I have nothing to say until I've had a look at it to better understand. But yes, creating groups within that particular group, creating subgroups that that certain people use. I think that happens as long as someone's either an administrator or a moderator, and the terminology is what I need to verify as well, because there are so many platforms. I currently am the person paying for this. So if people were starting to use it for things that generate money, it would be nice if that could contribute to the cost of it. You know, ethically, that would feel appropriate. But there's no rush on that.
So Claire, you're paying the site that you have, is there some way that we can contribute to you? Because you're allowing us to do this through your site, how might we do that?
Well, this is such a lovely question. Thank you. Said the starving artist. I suppose you could PayPal or Venmo. I mean, would it mean that I need to do something formal? I mean, here's the deal. At the moment, I'm paying the lower rate, which is I think about. I actually can't remember. I think it might be about $25 a month. I can double check. I'm so used to just dealing with it, you know. But there is if we ever wanted to going forwards, there is a more expensive business plan. I can't remember why it's better, but we can look into it, because I do think actually one of the things that it might offer is a platform for people to actually design workshops inside of it. So, you know, that's a thought. Looks like the low level is about 33. Yeah, I was grandmothered or grandfathered in. I think they've just put their rates up. So I that makes me think that I probably am paying about 25, but again, I'll double check. Yes, unfortunately it's 99 now. It was 81 last year, but I wasn't in a position to go up into that next tier. But that's definitely something between all of us. If that was something that any of us were actually using those sorts of functions, then it becomes very affordable. So
Well,
Marianne, I'll get back to you.
Okay.
I was also thinking that since we're talking about money and paying for things and organizing things, so my understanding is the higher tier payment for this platform is also used to have e-courses or video courses.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
So for the coaching program, for example, maybe that could be put on there, test it, pilot it, charge a smaller fee, prototype it, and then, you know, figure out what other things could be created or co-created, how we fund that at the start, how does the money get funneled back in, and maybe that becomes a conversation later in the future of how to create a cooperative payment system and collaboration system for the group.
Thank you. I appreciate the conversation around money. It's really good to bring that up. So yeah, I mean, I've offered to use Zoom, which means that I have to track the recordings, whether or not to record them into the cloud. That if I do just record them into the cloud, then I think it's easier for anyone to then download them who's part of the group. But there'll be an increased storage fee, probably. Dave has a GRC fundraiser. Okay. But yeah, I think we're lucky in that both of those costs, Zoom and Mighty Networks, are relatively low. And even if we go up, if our capacity to function in terms of the online courses and stuff, if we need that increased plan, it's still between all of us not that much compared to many other things. So I suppose I'll have to do that research unless other people are willing to do it with me. Lena, since you have some background, it might be efficient if you're willing to, if we could collaborate on that research.
Yeah,
that would be helpful.
Happy to help asynchronously.
Yes,
depends where you are on the island. Maybe we can meet somewhere for a tea.
I wish. I'm on a different island at the moment, a much larger one. I'm in Northern California.
Oh gosh.
But I might be in the UK later this year. Perhaps I'm just reading Marianne's note in the chat. So I'm 8 hours behind UK, 9 hours behind most of Europe, or 10, depending. Thanks, Marianne. My only invitation at this point is just to say the only next step that I see personally is for people to go and join the Mighty Network if we want to carry on, which I hope we do, designing how we're going to interact and how we're going to have some autonomy around that, and yet coherence. So that would be the second link. I'll put it back down here again.
Is this the kickoff meeting on this, or have
Yes.
there been meetings? Okay.
No, this is the first one at CART.
Okay. What about existing, not to complicate things, but I have partners and friends who are associated as for example, past long-term faculty at organizations like California College of the Arts. Does it make sense to communicate with them for any reason? Maybe they could be fiscal sponsors, or they could be, once a quarter guest, presenters, or even open up the window further to the field, the domain that we're trying to focus on, because there's a lot of interest in that space at places like CCA, as I understand. I don't know how many people in those areas know about what we're trying to do.
I'm a CCA alum, and
Okay.
that would be an interesting connection to make. I haven't stayed in close touch with folks. I think there's probably very, very little knowledge about this field at CCA as far as I know. But I was there 10 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. As a faculty or as
a student? I got a master's there 10 years ago. So,
okay.
I know not all the faculty, but I know a fair number. And
yeah,
I was an outlier then, and I'd imagine it's not changed much. But anyway, there are probably some interesting people.
There's a guy there, I forget his name, but he inaugurated the first design MBA in the nation. And so I think they push the envelope, and he's all about kind of pushing the bounds on sustainability.
Yeah, some of their architecture and design folks are really good. Yeah.
Yeah, Shedroff, Nathan Shedroff. So maybe some of those people would be worth getting in touch with. I do have his contact information. Okay, thanks.
I'm just going to show you something that I did just now based on what just got said. So all of these can change names, but just to place mark, right? I've just put this fundraising, sponsor, and collab ideas. So within that, any ideas that any of us have, you just start sharing them here, and we can respond to each other, and even make requests of each other. I think we can tag each other to make a request.
And Claire, so I guess I'm a little unclear on this idea of calendaring things. What's the next step there?
Well, I think for right now, always Dave first, right? Because that's the most important thing. That's the thing that's existing and working. But with regards to calendar, I'll just share the screen and let's see what happens. So if I want to create an event, so there is a calendar here. So let me add GRC post events to GRC Arts. So the event title, does next week have a title?
Is Michelle there?
Yeah, that's Michelle.
I'll just put this for now, just so we have an example.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. The conversation next week will be around shifting our cultural stories. and it's in the chat, and it's from the Post-Carbon Institute online course, and it would be lesson, I believe 11. I can check that, but yeah. So it's basically a video that will be 12 minutes long, and we are going to watch it, and then as usual when we do this this type of session, we are going to have the discussion afterwards, and it's with Richard Heinberg, and Richard Heinberg wrote the whole course.
Okay.
And I can, yeah. So
it looks like anybody can add, you know, a meeting at our standard time here.
Yes, so that you're seeing me do it right
description.
now. So I've put in the date.
Should the people who host post, or it doesn't matter? Like if you, how does that work?
Well, I'm literally just showing you. Let me just show you this first. So this is because I'm already in the network here. We can create topics if we want, so that you can put a topic tag. I've just put the title in, Michelle, nothing else yet, and the date and the time. I think it's better if it's not put as a repeat, just because I'm not sure how much you can edit, but I'll double check that. Then there'd be the link, the Zoom link, and you can it's entirely up to the individual whether you put an image, but this is where you would put that description, Michelle.
Okay.
So now I'm going to post it. Right now I'm not good. Well, why don't I notify? So then if I look here it is. So I'm curious, nothing there. But if I click on that date, there it is. So I can select the relevant date. And here, if you uploaded a picture, that's where the image would be.
Okay.
And that kind of thing.
Yeah. And we could put the Post-Carbon Institute logotype, because it will be I mean, if we use it each time we do a video about a lesson, then people can recognize it. It's like, yeah, it will be every 2 months approximately.
So I suppose
but the Zoom link is your Zoom link, is that right, Claire?
Yeah.
Or people are using their own?
No.
So how do we get? Can you preload the Zoom link into that?
Yes. So let me.
You make a weekly recurring.
Let me show you.
It's always the same one, right?
Yeah. Hang on a sec.
It's always the same. So that's good.
Too many bloody windows. I'm just trying to find my dynamic. Okay. So right now, we're actually in this one. So this is where we are right now. And at the moment, I can't edit it because we're using the link. It's live right now. But this at the moment is being recorded both to my computer and also to the cloud. So somewhere there's a cloud link that I can post. Maybe I post that inside the event each time, so people have a place to go if they want to download it.
Yeah.
That's a thought. I don't know if I can click on this and go inside it. I don't think I can. But yeah, so at the moment that's the Zoom link, and it will be the same one each time. What I can do is change the setting.
Grab that and put that in for people who sign up to do a session.
Yeah,
you have to be able to upload that link.
Yeah. So it's
that kind of text and all of that gets also copied to Dave Witzel, so he can announce it.
Yeah.
So there's sort of two steps. There's signing up on Dynamic Emergence, and then there's sending the same invite to Dave Witzel, and that usually happens later in the week or even on the weekend in advance, so that he sends out the invitations on the weekend to the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully he's been very kind, very proactive in terms of reaching out to say, does anyone have a description for GRC Arts this week? You know, thank God, because it's that little reminding voice.
Yeah.
Where we all suddenly panic and go, oh, who's writing a description? So the more in advance those can happen, the better. But yeah, so
We
the
usually, oh, sorry.
sorry, Michelle, just let me finish this thought, if I may. The priority in my mind for now is always GRC Arts, Dave, getting that info, that because that's what's already happening. Putting it on the dynamic emergence or the Mighty Network calendar is what also has to happen. But I feel the obligation is to make sure it's on with Dave first, just because that's kind of the public. There's already a relationship with the public. But I mean, they can happen simultaneously, but just one is not instead of the other, in my opinion.
No, it's just that for people to, in this meeting right now, to say, I want to host a session in a month. We have to, if we're going to start
Yes.
calendaring stuff, then that should start soon. And
Good. Yes.
we have the next two are scheduled.
Okay.
Perhaps something, a post with an admin on the Mighty Network site about, I don't know, event organizing protocol or something like that. And then a paragraph just mentioning what was just discussed. It's like an onboarding for people who want to organize events, something like that. And then I'm also wondering whether how everyone feels about maybe having a shared Google Drive where perhaps some copywriting text Google Docs can live, where there's some text that maybe people can reuse for events or something like that. If people are taking turns in terms of doing comms and stuff like that, sharing the workload. Yeah, just questions around that, like how have you been doing that before? Is it just one person, or have you been sharing things in a particular way?
We've had a couple of Google Docs, very, very minimal. We could add that to, instead of having another platform, maybe we can just have a place in the admin file for that, so that it's, all in one place.
Contained, yeah.
I'm happy to upload that and kind of help on the how-to primer on hosting.
We shared some of the events, but it was not all the events on social media. Sometimes, like Instagram, it was really not very organized, but we did sometimes. Yeah.
Christopher, was it you that said that Mighty Networks links to Slack?
Yep, on both the iOS on iPad and phone. If you go, if you create an entry on Mighty Networks and click the share hamburger, Slack comes up, and if you click that Slack, it asks you for it actually auto recognize the Slack channels that I'm active on, and you can select the Slack channel that you want to point it to, and it'll forward it straight over. I don't know if it does it on the browser version, but it does on the iOS versions.
Do you know if it also has a link already to Instagram?
I don't use Instagram, so I wouldn't know.
Okay. Lena, do you know?
I haven't tried that, but I just had did a quick search on Slack and Mighty Networks, and apparently I put the link in the chat, and apparently it seems to be that feature is for the business plan
Right. Okay.
tariff. So perhaps it's more of something to look into when we do a bit of an analysis of what do you get for the freemium and then like basic package and then like premium or pro, whatever, they have their tiers designed, and in terms of features and capacity, but there's ways of perhaps automating social media in a way using other platforms. So maybe we can talk about that another time, about how to do one. To me, it sounds as though today was more about organizing events, and then maybe we can have or continue the conversation on the Mighty Networks about how to communicate and promote events in the future externally, and share links around what are the possibilities. But there are some platforms where you can automate it.
Lena, I have to say, I just think the idea of having a closer tie to Schumacher College and the arts in that whole scene in Totnes is really exciting. So so glad you're here, and yeah, look forward to further conversation. I don't want to. I'm not the boss of this, but we usually end it at 10:15.
Yeah, and I'm flagging. There's a lot of really rich, slightly mental content there at the end, which is essential, has to happen. But I've just approved everyone. I'm so excited. You're like super efficient. So you've all been approved into the Mighty Network, which makes me feel a little less alone with the yes, celebration. Christopher, is there anything you want to say or do or add before we close for today? Co-host?
I love one of Lena's last ideas was to kind of pull all this together into some sort of onboarding post on Mighty Networks, on the GRC Arts group on Mighty Networks, because my head's spinning a little bit in terms of how where we're going to take this. So whatever we feel was codified in terms of out planning for the calendar and how to populate the calendar, own it, not own it, share it with GRC Slack, all those bits. I think that's a great next step, and maybe offline, if you've got notes and if you and Lena are in direct connection, we can collaborate to make sure that gets done before next Wednesday, so we can start having a resource to figure out planning out the future calendar.
Lena, could you put your email in the chat? And Alessandro, I have everybody else's, and it might be nice for us all to just have those.
Just to let you know, I can contribute asynchronously because I know I'm going to be like knee deep in coursework. It's going to be quite intensive the first 2 weeks back with my cohort. But yeah, if it's like texting and stuff, I think Mighty Networks also has like a direct messenger feature as well.
It does, so people can communicate directly.
Yeah, so
okay,
maybe
good.
That could be another thing, instead of, how can I put it, feeling scattered about all the different platforms and stuff like that. We can keep it contained there.
This is where you do that. And then here you can pick anyone to write a direct message to. I mean, my list is longer than yours because I'm sort of connected to everyone who's on the site.
And another thing is you can download the Mighty Networks app to your phone, and then you just have to log in and you can choose which network. I mean, I'm a part of several networks, but the thing that's quite nice with Mighty Networks is it kind of contains them a bit. So.
And you can, of course, once you're on Mighty Networks, you can elaborate a little bit about your profile and put links that matter to you about your work that you'd like people to know. Just stuff like that. Okay, everybody, thank you for staying for an extended meeting, slightly unplanned, but yeah, it's exciting. Very exciting. And thank you so much, Michelle and Christina, for giving us something to take on.
Thank you.
Keep moving it forward.
See you next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Thanks so much for coming.